Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. Before I forget, let's do this real quick. I bought 2 copies of this Deathstroke because it was kind of an impulse buy. I was interested in doing a comic book cover critique, and I wanted a digital code, so here you go. First come, first serve. With that out of the way, I have gotten some really great feedback on the comic book cover roast I did, talking about, doing structure drawing and the color harmony and reworking that. I sort of did those by accident because I bought a whole bunch of comic books. 2 of the covers I hated, and I got OCD about it, and I wanted to fix it. And I shot a video about it. And since I've gotten such great feedback about it, I want to do more of those types of videos, looking at covers, judging by the covers, and uh, showing you how I would study the drawing and identify what's good about the drawing, what's bad about the drawing, and pick a winner. My initial feeling is this is the one I would pick as the winner. I just like having a big giant rock fist on the front. I like Deathstroke's emotion in this pose and on his face, and the whole feel of Terra. This is a little bit less harmonized, but we're gonna mostly, that's it. That's my initial impression. We're gonna kind of live watch what I see as I draw and try to figure out how these drawings work. I think one interesting thing about this is I don't hate either of these covers, and I don't love either of these covers. They both seem pretty solid, except for little things like, love me. That's kind of a bit annoying. Whatever. It's kind of fake news because this doesn't actually happen in the issue. It's symbolically, it's about Terra and Deathstroke's relationship. I do not understand the story of Deathstroke at all. I do not know what's going on, so I feel hesitant to review it because I feel like I'd just be salty at the writers for not conveying to me who the heck all these people are and what the heck's going on. I'm a fake geek guy on this character. I just picked this up because he looks cool, and I like Slade in the Teen Titans cartoon, but help me out, guys. How do I know what the heck's going on in Deathstroke? Is there a trade paperback? Anyway, let's get into the cover critique. So this here is my Portatrace portable light table. I had a nice art light table at art school that was probably thousands and thousands of dollars, but this little beauty can do most of the kinds of projects I would do on that massive one from art school. I think it only was about $150 altogether. This was not a terrible buy even for a college student, and it's very useful. Just take good care of it. Only use it for your professional projects, and this will last you a long time. The way it works is there's just a bright light on the interior of this, and they color correct the light for painters. You can use this not just to trace, but you could also use this to separate out your own steps. So you could do the pencils, lay your pencils down on the light table, lay a fresh sheet of paper on top of that, or Bristol board on top of that, and then do your inks and keep your pencils and inks separate, which is nice if you get a little tense sometimes and you're scared you're going to mess up all your works on your pencils. And you can do the same thing with color. So lay the Bristol board down on top, paint and watercolor lightly on top, and you'll have a separate piece of paper for your colors and maybe for your pencils and inks, and then you can combine your colors with your inks in Photoshop. So great tool. Tracing is good as long as it's legal. Trace. I don't have a problem with tracing so long as you're also doing types of drawing that develop your ability to understand space and form and texture. So let's dive into this. Come on, buddy. Come on, little buddy. Yeah, boy. Let's start with this one since I actually liked it. Now, for these thin comic book pages, we're gonna see the ad showing through, but we'll make this work. So, for structure drawing, I like to find the skeleton and go from there. By the way, her feet, very strategic feet coverings, by the way, and her foot disappears behind this rock. So that's the only shade I'll throw on this one. All right, let's dive in. So, our boy Deathstroke, he's got his head tilted, and his spine is going this way, and he's got real broad masculine shoulders and a real broad chest. Now, if you read George Bridgman's Guide to Drawing, he has very Herculean figures. You can see how all the superhero artists read George Bridgman. The bottom of the rib cage is where you can convey a lot about a person who has a heroic barrel chest versus a person who has kind of a skinny pigeon chest. So Bruce Timm in the Batman and Justice League cartoons. All his men have that heroic barrel chest, and it's the angle of the ribs coming up to meet here at the sternum. If it is not an acute, if it's an obtuse angle like this, like a 90-degree angle, it will read as a strong barrel chest. I'll just doodle this over here. So if it's a little skinny rib cage like that, it'll read as kind of a weak, wimpy little dude, versus this kind of a rib cage, which will read as a very strong and masculine dude. And then the other thing for a masculine dude is this inverted triangle, where it's very broad up top and comes down to a point at the groin. Now let's do, so like I said, I start with the skeleton. That is getting kind of tucked behind his hand. This hand's a little twisted, but it's, you could make your hand do that, and he's in a stressful situation. I just thought maybe it'd be a bit more natural to put the hand going forward that way. Maybe by putting it there, it helps point the eye towards Tara. I'm not going to roast that. So that's it. That's a skeleton. I did that in about, what, 15 seconds, and I've already sketched out the barrel chest. So just like How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, cylinders. Don't worry about the muscles yet. Just get the cylinders down. And I want to draw his tummy even though he's going behind this hand, because that would be the best way to draw it in real life, because sometimes you'll see a hand holding a gun, but the hand's like that and there's no space for the gun to be. So the best way to avoid that problem is to draw things you cannot see, so that even if the viewer can't see it at the end, you will understand where his leg is supposed to be or where his hips are supposed to be, so you won't forget that while you're drawing the things on top of it. So he's probably, we're having to guess because this fist is here covering it up, but he's probably twisting his body around this way, so there'd be this strong action line, see? So, one, we're going to measure the heads. Let's start by, yeah, you should never forget to measure the heads. I actually should have done that before. So one problem is he's lifting his head up high, which is foreshortening it and making it shorter. So really his head should be just a hair, a scooch taller than that if we're using it to measure. Top of the head, down to here. 2, 3, belly button. 4, groin. So here's where his groin should be. You want to leave enough space between the ribs and the hips so that the ribs aren't bonking into the hips. They need to be able to twist their body left and right without their bones all clicking together. And my way of remembering that is just to give them a little bit of that kind of tummy fat, the muffin top. But on a very Herculean Greek body, it's muscle, but there's a little fat deposit there. So make sure you have enough space for that fat deposit between the top of the hip and the bottom of the rib cage. And now we've got the twist of the hip. Let's put in the femur. So he's a man, so he's a heroic man, so kind of narrow hips. And I'm just guessing now. He's being crushed, so maybe his legs would be coming together in an uncomfortable position. And where does the fist terminate? Oh, that's the metal ad. Okay, the commercial on the opposite side of the page is making it tough. All right, and feet. So he's getting squished together. And then, whoopsie, should have taped this down. Yeah, if I were being really serious, like if this was a painting or something, I would tape everything down with drafting tape. Drafting tape is a little like Scotch tape, but it's much lighter and more delicate, and it's supposed to let you tape down paper without ripping your paper. So you get drafting tape. It'll probably run you like $15 at an art store, but it's really good for paintings and Bristol board and those type of projects, and it's gentle on your paper. That's the key. All right, now let's take a look at this here fist. Boy, this is tough with the ad bleeding through. Okay, let's line it up. All right, and then, yeah, take lots of peeks. You know, this is how people would trace without a light board, is they just flip it up and down. That's how animators would do it. Gosh, I hate the ads. It's making it so hard to see the structure of that fist. All right, I think I got it. So this is kind of a jagged, rocky fist. So that... And I think I've said this before, hands are one of the most difficult things. I hate hands. Renaissance artists would hate hands and would leave hands till the very end because they have several planes and there's several shapes all coming together. And if you look at one finger, you can get so obsessed with one finger and then you draw the rest of the fingers and they don't look like they belong together. And that's a problem of what's the expression? Not seeing the forest through the trees. If you get too fixated on the trees, you won't understand how to draw the forest. If you get too fixated on a finger, you won't understand how to draw the hand, because they all work together and they all move together. So rather than focus on each finger, we're going to focus on each plane and try to show which way the fingers are bending. Down, down, down. There. You can even shade it to kind of help you indicate that. Especially if you're in pencil stage, you can use some shading to help you guide you through some of these things. All right, and then if I were working with pencil, I'd lightly shade that, and then I'd come in with darker pencil and then press down as I was getting more and more confident with my lines. I'm not that confident with this quite yet. It's probably because I got scooched around a bit. Oh yeah, I messed this up. Right and proper. There you go. So here's a good opportunity to say, like, here's a mistake, and now let's just make the mistake part of the drawing. So I completely sketched out the hand in the wrong place. Let's get the circle of the palm down. Yeah. All right, you're seeing all my weaknesses here, guys. I've talked before about expressive line versus structural drawing. So the point of a structural drawing is to figure out the structure, get it all in your head, and measure everything out, check and double check to make sure you're not elongating things, and then use rulers, use all those tools to polish everything. Gestural drawing is a bit looser, and it's a bit more about getting an idea down. So looking at this, the problem is I'm kind of combining. I accidentally slipped. So whoops, guys, I did it again. I was trying to do a structural drawing, and I slipped into sketch mode, where I was like trying to sketch out my own hand rather than just look at the hand underneath. So let's commit to the bit. I'm just going to draw this fist naturally how I would do it, and then we'll compare my fist to the one underneath, and I'll probably celebrate how they did it. All right, so there's one plane. There's my second plane. Bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, angle it, bring it down. The Diversity in Comics channel would call this the breakdown stage, where you're just getting the ideas down. You would probably come over with a fresh sheet of paper, and then looking at your lines, try to find the bold lines and then clean it up. So can you see how this is a little bit lighter down here, and these are a little bit thicker up here? What would happen if I laid a fresh sheet on top of that would be then I could more quickly see my dark lines that I'm actually a bit more confident in, and look past my light lines where I was less confident and just trying to feel it out. So let's go back to Tara, and let's finish taking a peek at how this is constructed. One thing I'm thinking about is there's a lot of empty space up here above Tara's head where the hipster ad is showing through. Maybe a little speech balloon would have been fun here. And that gets to something interesting about empty space and how to use empty space. In medieval art, there's a concept called horror vacui, I think it was, and it was the fear of empty space in medieval art. In medieval art, people would hate any empty space, so they would fill everything with little details. So every little cathedral, the arches would have tiny little dragons and gargoyles in them because they didn't want any empty space. So it ended up getting this overall very detailed, very ornate feel to it, where there's detail everywhere you look. One of the advances of the Renaissance was the idea of composing a scene with more emphasis on certain important things. So with empty space around Deathstroke becomes more important. This fist becomes the center of interest because it's so huge and massive. And Tara would become a secondary center of interest, being in the background and being a full silhouetted figure. Gosh, this keeps popping up. So Tara, I don't have any problem with her drawing so far, but let's draw a bit. So she's a very slender girl, emphasizing kind of her femininity in contrast to Deathstroke. Let's measure. 1, 2, 1, 2, breasts, 3, tummy, 4, bottom of hips, good. I need a tripod. That's one of the things I'm learning. I'm trying out different ways of making these videos to see what the most comfortable way is of making these videos. And I don't like this that much, right? What I don't like is holding the phone. I didn't like the tripod because the tripod, I didn't have any good angle to put it where I wouldn't show my face. I don't like digital drawing because I like the feel of holding physical tools in my hand. So I'm always bouncing back a bit from, oh, I'll use the digital tools, I'll use GarageBand and the mic, to, oh, I like the phone, I'll come back to the phone. But what I think I'll do to save a few bucks is, I can't see your hand. What I think I'll do to save a few bucks is since DC gives me all of the variant covers, I think I will do this digitally, but I wanted to just try this out so I could show off the light table and do a little bit more structural drawing. But there we go. This is not my best work, but I really like this cover. The point I was trying to get at is I think there may be too much empty space here. There's enough empty space that he becomes important and she becomes important, and my eye can read them. But that's a chunk of space, and that connects with what's called thumbnail drawing. Thumbnail drawing is where you read, and once again, read How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. That's the best book ever written. It's the only book, well, it's not the only book you'll ever need on art, but it is probably one of the best introductory books on composition and the human figure and perspective that you'll need, and you can apply it to more than just comic book drawing. So thumbnails is where you shrink everything down into just the most basic ideas. So Fist, Deathstroke, you would figure out your lights and darks in this stage, Terra. So that's pretty much the composition, right? And then there's just some rocks on the bottom. So center of interest, second center of interest, third center of interest, makes a nice triangle. That's good. But then we've got all of this empty space we're not working with. So just a little speech balloon up here would engage that area a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be much. The point I'm trying to get at is it's okay to have some empty space. So you see here still I have some empty space here, around here, there, but it's a balance problem. Too much empty space, it reads as dull and lifeless in a big, vast, empty sky. Too little empty space, everything is cramped and crammed and you can't see anything. You want to find that happy middle, both with how you balance your lights and darks and also with how you balance how much space you're filling the composition with. So overall, I would say that I think this is a decent cover, but it's not like a groundbreaking, awesome cover that would, enter into the history of the most brilliant covers of all time, but absolutely solid, and everything reads well. The only thing I'd really throw shade on at all is just the rock coverings on the feet, but even that's kind of cool. It's sort of an explosion effect. Let's get the artist on this. This was the alternate. This one was drawn by Ryan Suk, Shane Davis, Michelle Dalecki, and Alex Sinclair. Let's get that to focus. Okay, and I'm guessing Alex Sinclair did the cover. Ryan Suk did the regular cover. All right, this might be a bit more fun because we get a strong bird's eye view looking down. And once again, we have this terrible ad showing through. Man, I guess one of the benefits of me doing this live, we're doing it live, is that we're getting a bit more of my raw reaction to this, and it's a little less scripted. The consequences, you're seeing all of my tangents and all of my struggles live on tape, but that's okay. So I kind of messed up. Man, I messed up this whole drawing as I was going. That's going to be embarrassing. But one of my whole points of this channel is it's okay to make mistakes, and you build on the mistakes and figure things out as you go. So I totally muffed up that whole fist, but on the second draft, I think I identified a little better the planes and the fingers. So on a third draft and a fourth draft, I'd probably work it out for myself. For this one, the thing is my cheat with the heads won't work because she is sharply foreshortened. So let's just get the action line and let's get some foreshortened lines. You could measure this out, but it's quicker to just eyeball this. In the early stages, eyeball these things before you break out the rulers. There are some artists who swear off rulers entirely. They don't believe in using rulers. I'm okay with you using rulers for perspective drawing because I don't know any way to do mathematical perspective accurately without the tools of the trade. The tools are meant to help you do a better job measuring everything, but it's two styles of drawing. Using rulers and measuring everything is architectural style drawing. You're figuring out mathematically how to compose everything. Figuring out everything by hand and with your hands is a little bit more of an intuitive style drawing, where you're learning, you're training your brain, and you're using your brain to figure things out before you bring in external tools. And you'll make mistakes, but it'll be very alive. Again, Diversity in Comics has talked about this. 3D models have the proportions of human bodies, but they're all the same, and they all have the same dull poses. And by drawing it for yourself, you break out of it a little bit. So let's take a look at this. So she's screaming. So that would stretch her face out. So pretty much doing that kind of measure trick is useless. So that's one of my favorite tricks to do if people are standing or they're not foreshortened. So, and I haven't really figured out a good cheat to foreshortening like I have a standing figure, but pretty much one of the advice my teachers would give me, the Renaissance man, is trust your eyes. Your eyes look at human beings all day. Your eyes are really good at seeing a wonky human being. So all you need to do are to find tricks to let you see the mistakes in your own drawing rather than forgive the mistakes in your own drawing. So he would suggest things like look at it upside down, look at it sideways, flip it around and look at it left to right instead of right to left. And then mistakes that your mind would accept, you will not accept anymore. So let's finish this. Let's draw her rib cage. And there are her breasts, good, right at the place where the bottom of her chin would be if we measured 2 heads down. Her tummy is now like half a head because she's so sharply foreshortened. So I'm just going to draw the skeleton and then do the cylinders. All right, so there's the skeleton. There's the cylinder pointing downwards. Ankle. There's a reason that Rob Liefeld famously would cover up his feet, and that's because feet, like hands, are stinkers. They have lots of planes. There's a few simple shapes, but I hate drawing feet. I hate drawing hands, which is why I have 2 styles. I have the style where I spend 90 hours kind of meticulously drawing every little thing, making sure it's perfect, and I have the style where I try to loosely sketch it out. And my artistic career has been kind of a challenge of trying to get me to marry these 2 styles. So when I talk about that, one of the things is I'm not humble bragging that I'm the best artist ever. I'm legitimate. This is me speaking from experience that I have weaknesses as an artist that I've identified, and my artistic habits are an attempt to fix that. So the feet essentially have 2 planes: the toes, which point forward, and the top of the shoe, the top of your foot, which is more angling up. So this is angling up, and the toes are angling out. You especially see that in a foot if someone's standing on tippy toe, right? That's angling out, up, the toes are angling out. But even on a standing foot, you still see those planes. One way to get that is to try to turn it into geometry, look at it as a triangle and a rectangle connected to one another. But I prefer when I'm sketching out just to sort of feel it out and then come back later and fix it if it looks wrong. So, especially since we're sketching this out, we're going. Dang it, I was getting a little self-conscious and talking too much because I was realizing that I was having a hard time drawing and talking at the same time, and I ran out of storage. So now with a freshly freed up iPhone, let's wrap this up and not get too neurotic about my drawing. All right. So there we go. See, if I don't think about it too much, it just comes more easily. So for the hand, the palm as an oval, and then the thumb, and then think about the fingers as separate planes. Okay, got the idea? Yeah. I'm thinking too much about polished final drawing, and I'm not thinking about structural drawing. And structural drawing can be off. It can be messed up. That's the whole idea. You're just trying to get the structure down. And if you don't get neurotic about it, if you don't get too obsessed over getting it right on the first try, it'll come more easily. So you see that? It was like my phone ran out of data. I freaked out. I thought about what I was doing before, and I was thinking too much as I was drawing rather than just letting it happen. And then as soon as I took a breath and started the second take, there, I got my structure down for the hand. And who cares if every finger's in place right away? You can always come over for a second draft. So let's look at our boy Deathstroke again. He's got, I love that he has that line in his mask. Makes it really easy to see what the structure of his skull would be. And let's, golly gee willikers, let's get to work. Okay, so he is also at a worm's eye view. He's also still... Oh! Dang it, I got a call. Take 3. Take 3. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. All right, so Deathstroke is also at a bird's eye view. And one of the things I thought was weird was how small Tara's hands were compared to how big his hands were, given that this is so sharply foreshortened. He's at her feet, and she's standing at this incredibly, this incredibly exaggerated bird's eye view. So shouldn't she look a lot bigger than him at this angle? And this may be an example where if she had big honking huge hands, she'd look a little bit funny looking, even though a big foreshortened hand looks much larger than a hand at a distance. The reason why I think that this cheat, I think it's a cheat. I think it's a cheat where the artist is still drawing her with sort of dainty hands and still drawing Deathstroke with big honking huge hands. The cheat works because she's sort of a dainty, skinny girl, and Deathstroke's a big, strong Bruce Wayne type in his body build. So even though maybe it'd be more realistic for him to be much smaller in this composition, he's still the main character of this book, I guess. He's the leader of Deathstroke's Defiance team, and it even though it is kind of bugging me a bit in terms of foreshortening, it's saving the drawing from looking weird, where Tara would look big and strong and buff, and Deathstroke would look kind of tiny and petty and frail in his own comic. So it's a little exaggeration for artistic effect in the end. I guess this one, once again, we can see the composition. There's a lot of empty space here and here. So this fills up that with Love Me and the rock texture all around. But like before, now let's think about it. In the first one, I did a thumbnail sketch showing off what the composition might be. So in this one, their costumes give a lot of the black and white. It's not like a figure drawing where the light and shadow on the body gives most of the light and dark. It's mostly their costumes giving that effect. So let's do a thumbnail sketch. All right, so you've got Tara front and center and the strong bird's eye view. Strong lines going that way with her arms and the glow effect around her arms. Her legs coming out, making a V. And then Deathstroke's down here, filling up most of this space. And then Love Me fills up this, and then your placards up here. So it's actually a pretty squarish composition. And I guess she's got her mask and her hair around her. So I just don't like this as much as a composition, because when I look at it, most of what's going on is a kind of big oval, right? So this, you stay here pretty much, and you could look around here a little bit at some of the rock texture, but most of what's happening is right in this space, one blob. Most of what's happening in this one, there's a little bit more up and down, up, out. Oops, I did all this work to not draw in the comic book, and I absentmindedly drawing in the comic book. Sorry, guys. I had some comic books of people who felt pained when I drew on it. Well, I've done it. Let's commit to the bit. All right. So his action is going up and out, and this fist is its own self-contained center of interest. Then you come down here, and then she is the center of interest, and her hand is the center of interest. There's just a lot more dynamism and movement to that because it's not all one blob. It's shape, mini shape, the shape of her figure, and a human figure is always interesting because the human figure is so beautiful. But a much better comic book cover. I did not mean to draw on it. That was the accident. Maximum respect to this cover. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. We'll get it, guys. I'll figure this out. But more comic book cover critiques coming. I think now that I've shown off my light table, and that was kind of a fun bit, I don't like having the light table out unless I'm painting on it. So I think I'm going to move to digital cover critiques. I get the digital comics, so I'll put it on my screen. I'll draw in Photoshop. I'll teach myself how to do it again, because I think what'll be nice about that is I can just show you the structure of the drawing, and there will be a little less of me fumbling around trying to figure out the drawing. That's interesting too, because you see you know, how I mess up and try to fix it. But more comic book cover critiques coming, and we will focus on kind of the finished work rather than the making of as I dope through and try to figure this out. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging with me. Catch you later.